take 266. I'm exaggerating, but the devil giving me hell trying to get this video out because we're about to talk about money. One of the things that God shared with me is when it comes to money, many people, you guys have just been duped out of your blessings. God has given you blessings and you have emotionally sown into people, fearfully sown into people, because people have told you that if you don't come back to them, that if you don't, sow in, you're not going to get. But it just goes to show how naive. And I'm sorry if I have to use the language that I need to, but I need to awaken you. When you give, when God tells you to give, you get a harvest on what God has told you to give and to sow. But there are many of you are sowing into people who is bringing your destruction, because these people need to learn how to trust God and wait on God and obey God and follow God. And some of them need to find God, and you are sowing into dead soil where nothing is growing. If people keep needing you to pay their rent and to sow into so that they can get the things for their children and things of that nature, they are not reliant on the source. And the source is God. God provides all of our needs. Yes, many of us, we go through struggles, we go through battles, we go through things of that nature, even to save, because it's always something that God is doing. And one of the things that God is doing is raising up people whom he is putting wealth into so that you can be a kingdom blessing onto somebody else. But when you waste and you squander and you take and you throw away what God has given you and put it into dead soil, ain't nothing gonna grow up out of that soil. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. There is something wrong with you sowing a seed and giving as God leads. But when those of you who are sowing in fear and sowing because these people are not going to tell you the word of the Lord, or they hook you and then crook you, and you are not wise enough to say, you know what, I can go to God for myself. The next time somebody try to hook you in, tell them, look, I can go to God for myself. Get your rent paid the way you're going to get it done. Learn how to go to God the same way I'm about to go to God. Because many of you, because you were sowing into dead soil, you end up putting a curse on your finances. And you're wondering why you got to keep going to this person so they can continue to be like a leech and suck the blood out of you, because you won't go to God for yourself, when what God is trying to do is draw you to him so you could get to hearing and knowing his voice and getting from him what you need. But because you want popcorn service, you want the snap of a finger, you want the microwave version of what God is saying without you having to do any work, you get duped. And then you want to call everybody false. And you want to stick your finger and point your finger at everybody else because of what a group of people who don't even know God is doing. And some of them that do know God and got to pay the price to God. But you have to know that when you sow, you are sowing because God has led you to sow. Or you are sowing because you want to be a blessing into somebody else's ministry. And there's nothing wrong with you being obedient. There's nothing wrong with you taking and giving back, There are many people who don't think that I know, but of course I know, because God has already told me that there are many people who rob me every day. Every time I do a video, they know I'm only on this platform. So they take my video and they make money on other videos and they put their name under the video and they're making money from the video, not knowing that I do know what they're doing. But they don't have to answer to me. They got to answer to God, as I am obedient and doing what God told me to do. So a man will rob you, just like a man will rob God. But you have to know when to sow and be obedient when you're sowing, just like you're tithing. There are many of us, we tithe out of fear, and I did it for a long time. Tithing because if I don't tithe, I can't be a leader. Tithing because if I don't tithe, God gonna get me. I need to give God off the rip and things of that nature, which is scriptural. And a lot of you will say that's Old Testament. But millionaires, billionaires, people who have things, they tithe back into, what it is that they get, they give back. So whether it's an Old Testament principle, it's still a principle that needs to be applied. But my point to you is, Stop giving people out of emotion. If somebody's not feeding your spirit, if you are constantly eating at somebody's table and not bringing anything to the table, then, it's a problem. Because now you're mooching. But you shouldn't have somebody to make you feel guilty and tell you, if you don't give me this, I'm not going to tell you this. Or you can only get the $5 blessing. Or you can only get the $10 blessing. You got to get the $50 line, the $100 line, the $1,000 line, or whatever in order to get what God has given them freely to give to you, which it's their gift to give to you. And like I said, it's not about you not sowing into somebody, but when it comes to money, you have to be responsible, or you're putting a seed in dead soil. There are many people. One of the things that God taught me this year, he said to me, actually a couple of days ago, he said to me that he's raising up and he already has people in position who have accounts that are kingdom accounts. And instead of going to people for what it is that you need, even those that claim to be serving God, that keep robbing and raping and taking from you, there's a kingdom account for those of us who truly belong to the kingdom. And instead of us having to come to you and say, I need you to sow. And I understand the purpose of you making people responsible and teaching them that, they need to sow into, and the reason that when they went before Solomon, people bought a gift and things of that nature. I understand all of that. And I'm not speaking from that perspective. I'm speaking from people being robbed. But God has people who has a bank account. And you don't have to go to them people and say, you know what, God told me you got a bank account and it's a kingdom account. Give me some money out that account. But what you do is you go to God and you say to God, God, this is your house. God, you said that you would supply my every need according to your riches and glory. God, you said that if I call on you, you would answer me and show me great and mighty things. The cattle upon 1,000 hills is yours. The gold and the silver, all that is in the earth is yours. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So God, whatever I need, you already got it. You are my source. You supply all of my needs. And God will have either his angels to go on his behalf and minister to the person who holding his bank account to release to you, to get directly to you, even if it's clear across the country. Back in the day, I used to listen to some of the preachers that I'm not going to call their name because many of them have scandal attached to their name right now, but they taught me something about faith. They would travel from one state to another state simply because God said, not knowing where they were going, take what God told them to take, vans and trucks and a certain amount of money, get in a truck and follow God and go to the place where God tells them to go, meet the person God said this is the person, put keys to pickup trucks, to vans, to churches, and things of that nature that people had need of because they had kingdom accounts that they could draw out of in order to be a blessing unto somebody else. And some of them didn't even have kingdom accounts, but they were just determined to be obedient to what God said. And these are the days where we are. When you need something, only thing you have to do is go to God. And God will press upon people's heart to be a blessing. God will say, I want you to sow into. God won't let you find rest or peace until you hit that Cash App or Zelle or whatever means that somebody, Square, whatever it's called, whatever somebody needs and however the mode is that God wants them to give unto you. But you can't do it out of fear. And you can't do it out of emotions and hyped up and you just, I need to do this because this is good soil and that word that they just gave me. And sometimes you'll get that. But you just have to take a seat back for a minute and think and calm down and say, God, what will you have me to do? And God may say, I don't want you to sow into them. I'm already taking care of them. Or God may say, I want you to sow $100 into that person, without telling you anything else to it. But whether God tells you the amount or not, sometimes you'll feel on your heart that this is what you can give or what you're led to give or what you want to give. And it's good soil, so you're going to get a return on it. But my point is, stop being emotional and giving out of fear when God did not call you to give in fear or emotions. Seek God. for God's plan.